the tangents as we continue all the way to episode 439 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. And this week, we are going to share the love of the library. Woo-hoo! Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like a New York with virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere. This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello. How is everybody?
Yeah. So we just had our kvetching session about daylight savings. So
yes, we're all dying. We hate it. We don't want it anymore.
Yep.
Please stop.
In the words of the doctor, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Leave the time.
Like, oh, you've changed your clocks. I don't like it.
Leave the time traveling to the experts. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. All right. Well, first up, we need to do the news. So we got
have a decent amount here.
Yeah. So we got our first look at the Marvel series Echo. So that will be dropping in January 10th. We're going to get all of it in one fell swoop. So at least that's the way I'm interpreting all episodes of Marvel Studios Echo, a new original series streaming January 10th. So, but it's going to be on Disney Plus and on Hulu. So if you've got a Disney Plus profile that you don't want to set to mature audiences, I guess that gives you the option to watch on Hulu instead. Because if you're going to want to watch on Disney Plus, your profile has to be set to mature. But it's only going to be on Hulu until April. So after that, you'll have to go to Disney Plus. So
you have to change it anyway if you want to rewatch.
Yes. Yep. So, but that's exciting. Glad that is coming. And then this was exciting to pop up on my YouTube feed. We're getting a new Miyazaki movie called The Boy and the Heron.
It looks beautiful. It does. It looks so good.
The synopsis is mojito, not the drink. This is with an H, not a J. A young 12-year-old boy struggles to settle in a new town after his mother's death. However, when a talking heron informs Mojito that his mother is still alive, he enters an abandoned tower in search of her, which takes him to another world. Ba-ba-bum.
Yep. This has Miyazaki written all over it. And I mean, it's kind of a running joke at this time. How many times is he going to retire? But gosh, we love it.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever retire, or take care of yourself. Eat your vitamins.
Yeah.
Miyazaki-san, because you're an artiste.
Yeah. And of course there is the version in Japanese, but then there is a version that will have American voices,
English dub,
English voices, and interesting people. Some of these people I don't know who they are. Some of them I do, like Christian Bale.
Yeah, I think
he's playing Mojito's dad, would be my guess.
And he has been in a Miyazaki. He was Howl, I think, because I remember Jared telling me that story of Christian Bale saying, like, I don't care, like, I want to, like, telling his agent, I want to be in a Miyazaki movie, I don't care what it is, just get me in there. I'm pretty sure it was Christian Bale, and and then he ends up playing Howl, who was like the it's Howl's Moving Castle, crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the main character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, so that's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
I like this. I'm looking forward to it. I hope. Now, does it say anything about uh theatrical release, or is it just going to be? Because it
Uh
gets
right now, like on Rotten Tomatoes, it says where to watch. It says in theaters.
okay. So
So
okay, so it is. So it will be in the theaters in the U.S.
apparently some critics have already seen it though, and they
Ah,
love
okay,
it. So it's got 98% fresh
okay,
already, just based on
all right. Well,
critic
yeah,
feedback. So
because it's already been released in theaters in Japan,
yeah,
obviously, and
worldwide was December 8th.
okay,
So
so
yeah,
yeah, okay,
but
so
yeah.
we'll get theatrical, which is great because not much going on in theaters right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Like,
I will
hey,
take
new Miyazaki
I
movie? Why
we,
not?
we gimme,
Mm-hmm.
please, please. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. Uh, some more of this cast. Dave Batista, uh, Gemma Chan, William Defoe, Mark Hamill, Robert Pattinson, and Florence Pugh, among others.
Quite a few Marvel actors in this.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yes, it was Christian Bale who was Hal in Howl's Moving Castle. So yes, he was the one who was like, I don't care. Like told his agent said, I don't. Told him, I don't care. Get me in a
Mm-hmm.
Miyazaki movie. I don't care if I have to play like random extra background extra number one,
Mm-hmm.
or number six. And there he was. So that's cool. That's cool. He's coming back for another one.
Mm-hmm.
Excited.
Which is like funny because I just watched Newsies over the weekend. So it's like, oh, really, really young Christian Bale singing and dancing about being the king of New York. So that was amusing. Uh so and then the folks at Netflix apparently have decreed that today was Stranger Things Day. Uh so we
Okay.
got all sorts of goodies. Some of it's just kind of, I think they were just kind of like, hey, remember this is a thing that you like. And it will be coming back eventually. Or something like that. But we did get some announcements, which is cool. Nothing about the final season yet. But they have announced that we are getting a Stranger Things VR game. Will be available at the end of the month on MetaQuest. But you're playing the game as Vecna.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah.
So so you're gonna try to chase after people
I guess this
and
is
eat
like
their
the
soul.
story of him becoming like the king of the the kind of the
Upset.
top dog in the Upside Down.
All right. See how
So,
that goes.
but yeah, I was like, that's a plot twist if I ever heard one.
Right?
Yeah. And then I'm jealous of our friends across the pond here. They are getting a play that is canon because the Duffer brothers are involved, called Stranger Things: The First Shadow. It's set in Hawkins in 1959. So it's a prequel.
Now
And
I
it's essentially going to tell us the story of the Creel family, essentially.
Okay.
So
So now I have the most important question that needs to be asked.
mhm.
Will there be singing and dancing?
No, it's not a musical. It is
Darn
a
it.
play. But there
I
are going to
wanted
be apparently very intense and appropriate special effects.
okay. I
So
just
That's intriguing.
I was just picturing, musical version of the Upside Down. I mean, I know we had Eddie Munson and doing Master of Puppets and all that stuff, but it's
yeah.
kind of like, I'm like, I need a Demogorgon Bollywood number
Yeah.
because that would kind of be awesome. But
Yeah.
I'll take the non-musical. That's fine.
Yeah. No, it is a play.
Ah,
Not a musical. We'll probably have to leave that imagination to like College Humor or something.
all
Those folks.
right, all right, all.
Oh wait, actually, I
If someone has not already done it, just out of sheer boredom. Uh it's been a long couple of years. Uh
Kinda, yeah.
so but speaking of music, not musicals, but music, and I cannot believe that I'm living in the timeline that I get to say this, but this makes me so happy. We have new Beatles music. Unless you've been living under a rock, we have a brand new Beatles song. I'm kind of tearing up every time I think about it. I'm like chills. I'm so excited. It's like I can't believe that this is like it's like with all the other crap and everything that we've had to deal with in the world. I'm so glad this is a thing. Oh, that I get to live to see the day.
Every
So
once in a while, the universe throws you a crumb.
it does, and I
Mm-hmm.
am totally here for it. So there's a whole like mini documentary on the official Beatles YouTube channel, so you can see how this came about. But TLDR, we have Peter Jackson to thank,
Oh
essentially.
well, yeah.
So, but yeah, the song is called Now and Then, and yeah, I am so just like I'm just giddy. It's like it's like how is this a thing? I'm so excited. So yeah, if you haven't listened to it yet, go listen to it because it's so wild. It's so wild how they were able to pull this off. So technology is a wonderful thing uh in this case. So but yeah.
That's cool.
Yes, it's very cool. And a book club update since we are in a new month. So the book
Yep.
for this month is Josephine and the Argonauts. And then the poll is up, and the choices for December are Extraction Point, Rebellion at Treasure Island, 10 Days of Christmas, and rather appropriately, considering he's coming back on TV, Celestial Toymaker.
So go cast your votes.
Yeah.
Get into this month's title. Leave your comments and go forth and do book club things.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Good.
really scary to think that that's the last poll for this year.
Don't remind me.
Why did you have to say that? Oh my goodness.
Oh,
I don't know either. I was at work today getting all my things done and stuff, and I'm like, oh crap, we've got to. And I was reminded in an email, it's like we got to finish out our end of year budget, and I'm like, oh, okay, because if we don't spend all our money, it has to go back to the system as a whole because there's stuff they got to buy, and
mm-hmm.
they're like, all right, make sure we've got all our stuff taken care of before it has to go back to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's only it's November. Yeah, I guess. Guess we need to do that. Anyway.
So that is the news. We do have some feedback, of course. We talk about a musical. We get a whole block of text from Shalane. So she says, "Hey girls, finally we got to Little Shop of Horrors. I think this is your 6th musical episode you talked about this year, and the last one of this year is what I think." You can keep thinking that, Shalane, but you'd be wrong.
Maybe don't put money on that, but
yeah.
Thank you for keeping track either way.
Yeah. Then you'll be back next year. Oh, yes. I mean, there'll definitely be more next year. I thought you girls were going to talk about Hairspray this year, since Rachel saw Hairspray the tour, because you girls talked about Les Mis and Rachel saw the Les Mis tour. Hairspray will come eventually. So I'm seeing a little something else in a couple weeks. So anyway, I watched about 5. I was about 5 or 6 when I first watched Little Shop of Horrors, the movie. I think I rented it or watched it on cable. At first I thought it was called Little Shop of Horse, not horse.
Well, when you're that young,
yeah,
you hear things. Sometimes you hear things wrong. Trust me.
Yes. Yeah. And then when you get to a certain age, you got get to a certain age, and then you realize you really need to emphasize that it's Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes. Yes. So then I guess unless that's just, I don't know. Because now that she said that, I'm like, well, I must have been older than I thought I was when I first saw it, because I know we rented the movie when we saw the musical in personal. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Years later, I watched The Making of the Little Mermaid, found out Alan Menken and Howard Ashman were the men behind Little Shop of Horrors. Fun facts: 2 friends of mine from college just did an episode on Little Shop of Horrors, and one of them also had the knowledge of Disney like me, and they said that Little Shop of Horrors is what started the Alan Menken and Howard Ashman to come and work for Disney. Yes, we mentioned that too. They said on their podcast that the song Somewhere That's Green inspired the Disney princess songs. Yep. Also, I think Ariel's inspired by Audrey, and I think the Greek choir were inspired for the Muses in Hercules. You think? But Ashman died before Hercules, yes, but that didn't stop Alan Menken. Also, go watch the Howard Ashman document on Disney Plus if you haven't seen it yet. Yes, you should. There's some really good Disney history documentaries on Disney Plus. So.
Which is a good place for them.
Yeah. I'm still waiting patiently for an Alan Menken and Howard Ashman episode. Yes, we will get to it, I promise. My friends also on it. Yes, we can only do this once a week. My friends also explained that Ashman wrote a song for Aladdin that was cut and ended up on Broadway. Proud of Your Boy. It was based on Ashman coming out as queer man to his mom, but Ashman did Beauty and the Beast, then Aladdin, and they rewrote Aladdin. Yes, they did, because at first Aladdin's mother was supposed to be alive, and then they had the song Proud of Your Boy, which is on one of the anniversary DVDs, because it's on the one I have. I just don't remember what
that was, because
anniversary it was.
Yeah, because it started with Beauty and the Beast when they added human again into that one. Then they did one with Lion King. It was The Morning Report. And then the Aladdin one, they didn't do a fully animated sequence for it. They just had pencil test drawing for it. So I think it's just an extra. So it's not integrated into the movie.
Yeah,
but it is on the special features.
Yes, because it's because they showed the storyboards, and they made a fresh recording of the song sung by second season American Idol runner-up Clay Aiken. So
there you go. Cool.
Yeah. Also, Ashman had a Beauty and the Beast sweater. I'm sure they had all sorts of branded gear from working on those things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have more to tell you girls. I'll save when we get the Little Mermaid an episode about Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. Fair enough. Going back to Little Shop of Horrors, my college town did Little Shop of Horrors at a theater at the community theater, but I didn't go see it because I was busy with school and I really wanted to go see it. I needed a trip to New York and see it. We all do. I also just realized this is the third movie Rick Moranis you girls talked about after Ghostbusters and Spaceballs. Next, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Maybe. Anyway, I thought also for your girls, we'll be talking about Nightmare Before Christmas after a little shot for the 30th anniversary, but girls have a week off. But you could talk about For Christmas, and it's also a musical, but I'll be patient for it. We appreciate your patience.
Yes.
Going back with Little Shop of Horrors, the movie, the ending, the ending with a happy ending. I watched the alternate ending, and I think the movie would have not been good. I wish the ending of the stage play was the happy ending.
So you agree with the focus groups then?
Yeah, apparently. So are you girls planning on doing another Halloween episode in April? I don't know. We don't plan that far ahead usually. So here who was going to be in the canceled remake. Taron Egerton was Seymour. Scarlett Johansson was going to be Audrey. Chris Evans was going to be the dentist.
Oh my.
Yeah, I think it's good they canceled the remake of the film. I don't think it would have been good.
This is what I've noticed about Chris Evans since you know he hung up the shield for Captain Marvel. He's kind of been the roles I've noticed he's been taking on have been kind of jerks for the most part. Or jerks or just kind of not very likable characters. And I'm just kind of like, are you trying to tell us something, Chris?
It's like Steve Rogers was just so freaking nice that,
Well, yeah, but it's like you don't.
Maybe he's got some pent up dickery that he just wants to get rid of. I don't know.
maybe. I don't know.
Although, as a Human Torch, he wasn't like, the nicest guy. So
true.
Human Torch, he was a bit of
a jackass.
Yes.
Bit full of himself.
Yes, and some other words that we don't want to say in a PG-13.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's some not nice guys in some other movies. You ever seen Scott Pilgrim?
I hate Scott Pilgrim. I hate it. And that is only because I saw it about 10 years after it came out, and I was so over hipsters by then. And when I was told this is what started it, I'm just kind of like, screw that movie. Jared loves it, and he was like, "I'm really sad you don't like it." I'm like,
Hey, we all have that one movie or two that we're just like, oh yeah. So that is okay. This movie
needs to be fired into the sun.
Dang.
I will help you send it as long as I can also send along It's a Wonderful Life. So that is my my bargain. So
all right.
So that's Shalane's feedback, and we got some feedback from Aaron. This was really short. His subject line was meh. Hello, wonderful five shows. So this might be my last message because you all may ban me for my next comment. I hate Little Shop of Horrors. Chrissy's clutching her pearls.
Heresy!
Says a woman who just spent 30 seconds kvetching about Scott Pilgrim.
This is true. No, Aaron, you know what? It's okay. You are allowed we are all allowed to not like or not like things as we will.
Yes.
So I won't give you too much crap. I did have I think I may have mentioned this last week. I did have a roommate that I showed this to because I thought it was just gonna be an awesome Halloween movie and she's gonna enjoy it. She hated it too. So I'm like, okay, I get it. It's
Yep.
it's it's a taste thing, and you're totally fine. You are not
Yep.
banned from writing to us.
Yes. I've seen both the movie and the stage show, and neither did it for me. I've always been amazed by the love for it. So it was interesting to hear all the discussions on the project. Take care, Aaron. Oh, we're not going to ban you, Aaron, because
No, but
you
thanks for
hate it.
writing in.
I'm
Thanks for writing
I
in some feedback anyway.
Yes, yes. Please continue to write in feedback. You're not banned. If we were going to ban you, then for opinions like that, we wouldn't have a show because we'd have to ban ourselves. So
Yes. Yeah.
like
This
how
is
I've
true.
seen both Phantom of the Opera and Cats. I've not seen the Cats movie. I don't care to, but I have seen both Phantom and Cats properly on the stage. I don't care for either.
I
So
don't I watched
I felt very just
uh,
kind of about both.
so
Give me
funny
give me
story.
Spam a lot any day over Phantom of the Opera. I'm so sorry, all you Andrew Lloyd Webber fans. So
A funny story. I watched this YouTube video. It's about like 45 minutes, an hour long. About and it's by from a channel like this guy is like totally into musicals, and he's like he's a music aficionado and knows like all like how it all works in musicals
mm-hmm.
and music and stuff like that. And he was breaking down why the Cats movie didn't work and all these different things. And I've never seen Cats in any form or iteration. And the way he explained the story, I'm like, okay, that is a very interesting story. I don't think I could watch it and take it seriously with a bunch of people prowling around with fur all over their bodies and they're acting like cats. I don't see that. I'm sorry. And the movie obviously doesn't help, but it made for a lot of fun YouTube fodder. So that was
Mm-hmm.
entertaining. But the songs are decent, but I'm just like, this would probably be better if the cats were like
Yeah.
actually animated, like
Yeah.
Aristocats or something like that.
Yeah. It was funny because it's like, we did that episode last week, and then like a couple days later I was on TikTok, and in my For You feed popped up a clip of Corbin Blue and I think it's Gemma Chan.
There you go.
They were doing Suddenly Seymour on like Good Morning America or something like that. And normally I'd be like, well, that's weird, like, because sometimes you'll talk about something and suddenly I'll show up on your social media, but I'm on Broadway talk a lot anyway, so it wasn't that weird. So but yeah, so yeah, just give me Spam a lot over anything Andrew Lloyd Webber. Sorry. To each their own. So
Yes, indeed. So yes, you are allowed to like or dislike whatever it is that you do.
Yep.
Because if we liked everything the same, how could we have interesting conversations about anything?
Exactly. Like I said, we'd
Right?
have to ban ourselves.
Yeah, just don't take it personally, and it's all right.
Yep.
I think that's something people need to learn. Anyway,
So moving on to this week's main topic. We know
I'm
it's
very excited for
November, so a lot of people are in the middle of NaNoWriMo, and it's also getting
Yep.
cold, so people are spending more time inside and stuff like that.
Indeed.
So I'm not going to like properly go through the presentation that I give at conventions. We're actually going to expand upon it, but for those that are interested, we're recording. I mean, Zoom records both the screen anyway. We just don't usually use that because it's just the Zoom screen. But we'll have the PowerPoint open along with some other resources. So, if you happen to go on YouTube, you can see some of the stuff, but we'll also put links to a lot of the things as well in the show notes. And if you really want to see the PowerPoint, just send us an email. I can give you a link to it and you can see it, look at it yourself if you want. So, but yeah, libraries are amazing. So, and I mean, that's not just that, obviously, yeah, I'm a fan. But it's one of those things where it's like when I first moved to the area I live in now, I think I got a library card and hardly used it. And then life got I moved down here when I was still in high school, so then I was in college and busy doing 5 million. I was using the university library for academic stuff. I didn't have time for fun. And then the pandemic happened, and of course my library closed for a while. But we started Gold Standard, and I quickly realized that that it was going to get very expensive very quickly renting these movies from Amazon or wherever. So when the library did reopen, I went and got a library card just so I could get the DVDs for the movies that I needed to get for Gold Standard. And since then, I am at my local library at least once a week.
And Rachel, with as many of those movies that you had to watch that you absolutely hated.
Yes.
How much worse
I'm
would
glad
it have
I did
been if
not
you'd
pay
been
for them.
I spent money on this. No.
Yes.
Let the library pay for it because somebody is going to like it. I'm sure there's somebody out there in the Indiana public library system, or whatever it is you guys have, because I know yours is a bit more extensive than ours. Somebody out there is going to enjoy one of those things. They're going to want to watch it. So there you go. And the library is more than happy to spend money on things that everybody can share. And so kind of what we wanted to do, or because Rachel had talked about doing this presentation at one of the conventions in conjunction. Was that the one?
I have done it. I've done it at both PopCons this year and at In Conjunction. So
and I was like, well, because in my day job, I am a librarian. So I was like, well, could we do this as a podcast topic? Because I wanted to talk about it from sort of the behind the scenes perspective of what libraries
Brittany
do.
worked in a library for a hot minute.
Yeah, she did. She did. Because I want to talk about how the process of doing programs, how things get purchased, what other things we have, because yes, we are more than books. And I can't tell you how many times, and it's usually an older person who is or well, maybe not I don't want to say elderly, way old, but somebody is oh, with ebooks and Amazon, are there really still books? I'm just kind of okay, come on, now you're just
I've got two library books sitting right next to me right now.
It's you're just being a dick. I'm sorry. I hope none of my bosses listen. I know it's funny, but no, there are some things, but it's because yes, books are amazing, and as we found out during the pandemic, it was okay, what do we do? What? And I know my system, we were talking sort of behind the scenes, we still want to be there, we still want to offer things, and we worked really hard to be able to open even just on a limited basis. And people would come in and say oh, we're so glad that you're open, and they could do curbside pickup, or they could come in for 15 minutes, grab a few things and go, especially families with young kids. And they were just and children, I'm a children's librarian, so we would put together story time kits and things like that they could take home and still do some of that programming, still have that, even though we couldn't do our full slate of everything we do. And also Jared, because Jared was a 40-hour librarian at the time. I was kind of furloughed because I was only part-time right then, but I was still kind of keeping tabs on things. But he was kind of spearheading a project to do online Dungeons and Dragons, because we have a lot of branches who host Dungeons and Dragons nights. It's like, well, there, and we did that as the podcast too, as doing online D&D. We recorded it, but he was doing it so we could use the website. They started, some of the other teen librarians started a Discord server, so it was like a place like the teens could virtually gather, and then do all those things, because those kids, or everything was online, and it's kind of kept going. So it was like there's a hangout spot, and they still do online Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, the whole system has kind of done their own, how they're, there's done its own adventure setting and adventure module using the fifth edition rules. But Jared that was like even though we were closed, he was still working full time, because he was working on that in 2020, which was kind of awesome for us and for him and for the system as a whole. So, there are things like, yes, there is the physical building that you can go into, and depending on how big your library system is, like my library system, the Salt Lake County system, has 18 branches. Plus we have we do services at the jail. We have a reading room at the at like the low income clinic that's almost, well, it's not quite downtown, but it's on South Main. And then there's a reading room up at one of the ski resort towns, which is kind of cool. And so there's different things we do, but as far as like geek culture and pop culture is concerned, I mean, and I think a lot of geeks and nerds and whatever we want to call ourselves have discovered that the library is a valuable resource for everything and anything and everything you could want. As far as like, oh, I want to try this new show, or this new book series, or I haven't got caught up, or in the case of my library system, and I know a lot of other library systems are doing this, we call them create spaces, which are and it's not all branches. My branch doesn't have one, but the one that's just north of us does, because they're bigger. But they have a 3D printer. There's some of our branches. There's one that has a laser cutter. Actually, I think two of them have laser cutters. They have sewing machines, so you want to do that cosplay, and maybe you don't have a sewing machine, or because sewing machines are expensive, not to buy and to maintain. So if you're not going to be doing a ton of sewing, or maybe you don't have the room for it, well, come down to the library, reserve a little bit of reserve a time and come do it. Jared just came home. We were recording a podcast for our system, but other people will record their own podcasts. We've got another branch that has a green screen studio. So any kind of creative thing that you want to do. I mean, we've gotten 3D print requests for everything from like pieces for cosplay, or little figures, and it's all, and it's all basically free or very low cost. And in the case of 3D printing and using the machines and stuff, there's a fee to kind of offset the materials, but it's like way cheaper than, oh, I need to go buy my own 3D printer and the filament, and I don't know what I'm doing, and blah blah blah.
Or sending it off to one of the like an online service where they'll print it for you and mail it to you.
That too. So you just go pick it up and say, oh, here, this is what I want to do. And the branches that have dedicated create spaces, they actually have someone on staff that's just what they do. They just run the maker space, the create space. They don't deal with the books. They don't deal with any other programming. That's their thing. That's the whole thing they do. And they help people with all the stuff that's in there. And I've been to some of our newer branches to see, and I'm like, wow, like these are so cool. And it's really neat, like what we've been able to do. So I really want to put a plug in for that. And this is kind of becoming a thing all over the place. Is
ours we have because my local, the one I go to, did like a major remodel after the pandemic. I imagine that it would have happened before the pandemic and been done sooner, but still, And yeah, there's an entire like quarter of the second floor that's what they call the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got large tables to if you need to spread out to work on something, but they also have um computers dedicated for things like just like audio or video editing. They've got craft and STEM kits that can be checked out. They have
Mm-hmm.
a fully stocked AV room. And then occasionally they will have a like a maker in residence for like a week where somebody's like
Oh wow.
you know, an expert on using like, you know, a laser cutter because we have one of
Mm-hmm.
those at my
Mm-hmm.
library, and people could come in and ask us expert questions about that thing that they're an expert on.
Yep.
So and so like even if there is happens to be a staff member that's knowledgeable, they are
Mm-hmm.
now freed up to help other people, and you can just
Yeah.
bombard the expert with all of your questions and take up all of their time because that's what they're there for.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, get into those maker spaces. Just go in and play around with it because
Mm-hmm.
okay, I
And
don't
they'll
because
and
yeah,
yeah, and they'll usually let you unless
oh yeah,
something,
well,
yeah, unless there's like something scheduled going on, which sometimes they
mm-hmm.
will, you know, like they'll have like a,
Yeah,
you know, open to the public, you know, come
like an
craft
open
something
house
or
sort of thing.
other. Yeah, so
Yeah,
but if the space is not being used, odds are they
mm-hmm.
will just let you
Yeah,
go ham.
yeah. I mean, see the way our system deals with it is because every branch has like rooms you can book for, you know, if
Mm-hmm.
it's a study room or if like you're gonna have there's a big meeting space. So if you need to have a meeting or study session, or we've had people come do bridal showers in our big meeting room, which is kind of cool. It's just a public space. But we also treat our create spaces that way. So it's like, say you want to go use the sewing machine. Well, you know, you find the branch that has a sewing machine and you book it the same way you would book a room. And so it's kind of funny when I'm looking up somebody's room reservation and our system, our program we use to keep track of room reservations, because it's all in there. And the default is check all, so it'll show me everything in the system. So I like have so if I don't uncheck everybody and just, you know, select my branch, I'll have to scroll down through all the podcast studio, sewing machine, the 3D printer, the laser cutter, and I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. But it's really cool that we do have all that stuff and we do it on kind of a reservation basis. But like you said, if nobody's using it, and it's the same thing with our room reservations. If someone shows up and say, "Hey, is there a quiet space I can, you know, go do a Zoom call in?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
our conference room is available. No one's booked it for right now, so you can go use it." I just put them in the thing and in the system because that's how we keep track of how much is being used. And if it doesn't get used, then, you know, they look at those stats and are like, "Do you really need this?" And I'm like, "But ours gets used." So
Mm-hmm.
that's great. So and that's the thing. That's the other thing I want to stress is there are so many resources and so many things we have. Um, I know I'm kind of hopping around here. This isn't quite in the order of the PowerPoint, but
Yeah,
we
like I
have
said,
things
we're just
like
using that kind of as a
yeah. So
base.
our system has databases, which sounds boring, but when I say a database, it could be something like we have one that's called Creative Bug, which
Mm-hmm.
is a subscription service that has just arts and crafts, and it can be as something as simple as something you can do for like your toddler or your young kids, or like oil painting, or it's like this step by step way of how to do it. And if you were to buy that subscription on your own, it would be a lot of money. But the library it pays for it, and we try to promote that we have it, and you access it through our website. So if you go to our website first, and I'm sure this is true of most library systems, and then you access it through there, they're like, "Oh, you're a library patron. Your library has a subscription to this database, so you can use it for free," which is so cool. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked at some of the stats because we libraries love statistics, and I'm not really one to like get into like, I mean, I'll look like, oh, that number's bigger than that number. There's a reason I'm a librarian and not a mathematician. But even I am kind of a math dummy. I can see like what's being used the most, and some of our databases, which are really cool, are not getting used. So and we just had to get rid of one database that just wasn't getting used. But to be fair, it wasn't very user friendly, and it's being replaced with something else. It's actually cheaper, which is nice. But yeah, Rachel brought up the slide here of the things that your library card can get you, and you'll want to check and make sure your system has it, because we've gone through phases where we've
this is
yeah,
not every library system
no,
across the
no,
board. So
this is not extensive. Although Libby is almost universally used because Overdrive has bought. They're like the Disney of library service, online library
yeah,
services. They bought everything. They bought One Click Digital, which was all audiobooks. So they like basically tripled their audiobook offering, which was kind of cool.
yeah.
But we went
I
through a stint where
love Libby.
yeah, it's what my favorite thing about Libby, and this is kind of and again, depending on where you are, because we have the Salt Lake County library system, which is what I work for, and then we also have the Salt Lake City library system, two different things. But I still have my Salt Lake City account, which is tied to my county card, and I can hop back and forth between their two Libby things. So even though I don't live close enough to the city library anymore, and so I don't check out physical books. I still check out all the digital stuff, and they have some stuff the county doesn't have. The county has stuff that the city doesn't have, so it's nice to double dip. So if you can do something like that, if you have multiple library systems in your area that you can dip into, totally do it. I do it all the time. And we had a and like we had Hoopla several years ago, and then we had to not have it, not because nobody was using it, but because Hoopla has this weird thing where if for like a library is charged for every checkout that a patron has. So we actually had to get rid of it because people were using it too much, which I think is silly.
No
And that's the
kidding.
one that so I'm like, come on, like people are actually using this, they're liking it, and they had to like, no, we can't have it anymore because they have audiobooks, but they have movies, they have audiobooks, and I feel like there's something else. They have music, I think. But yeah, people were just listening to audiobooks on it, which is great, but it was costing us way too much money, and I was like, that is so dumb. And it's just the way
Mm-hmm.
Hoopla is set up, and there's not much we can do about it. But
That's
we got it
kind of
back.
the point, is
I
if it's
know
being used a lot, then
you want
because
people
I
to use this
yeah,
stuff.
because I'm on the library's Reddit,
Uh-huh.
and you will see the occasional person that's all like, is it okay that I'm only borrowing like digital books, or it's like,
Absolutely.
is it okay that I'm doing so many interlibrary loans? And they're like, yes, that's what it's here for,
That's what
because
it's
that it
here for.
you were talking about,
Do
you're
yeah.
having to do your budget, and it's like that's how
Uh,
you can justify your budget.
yes. So
So
here's my thing, because I do have a budget, and because my library system's so big, and so it's very, I don't want to say micromanaged because that's not the right term, but it's so big. We have so many people doing so many different things, but it's all similar. And our system, and I think a lot of systems are doing this, are going to what's called central selection, or we call it acquisitions. It's basically that there's a department of people that all they do is buy new stuff, and that also folds into like the digital things. And every once in a while they'll do a training or some kind of presentation or whatever. So we hear from them a lot, and they talk about all the time. They talk about like they'll look at how many holds something has, and if it's got a really long hold list, they'll buy another copy if it can, but because they're like, they would rather that money go to something that people are using. And I feel the
mhm.
same way when I'm buying in my collections, and I do mostly children's stuff, so I do like the early readers and some nonfiction for kids stuff. um, and then they like the beginning they say, okay, here's your budget for this section of the library, and you have till the book buying year ends in October. So it just ended. So we just had this whole big flurry of, hey, make sure you're spending your budget because it doesn't roll over. And I'm like, and you're supposed to be buying stuff throughout the year. So you're only, you're spending, and you don't buy everything because you can't, because you don't have the money, you don't have the space to keep it. And that's just true. And some stuff gets worn out, and I can go into that later. But what I hate is feeling like I have this money, but I don't see anything I want to buy for my collection, or that I don't feel like I need to buy, or that isn't going to get used, I don't think. But if I know that patrons are using this stuff, and it comes back to me and it's got like 100 circs and it's falling apart, and because like I'm like, oh, I will happily buy that thing, because one of the worst things that can happen is you buy something that you think, oh, this is going to be great, and then it just sits there and sits there and sits there, and after 2 years is kind of the magic cutoff date. So like if brand new and doesn't check out for 2 years, it's gone, because we just do not have the space to keep it. And when I say gone, it's like we put it on the book sale, or we actually have a second, or this is a new thing. Like it's like the system book sale, where we have people who will take the books that we've weeded out, and if they and they like check it against like going rates on like online secondhand sellers, so like Aid Books or Amazon or things like that, so we can recoup some of that money back, because we noticed people were coming into the branches and like doing their little book scan thing, so they were like buying our copies for like $1, but then turning around and selling them for much more, and we're like, why don't we just do that? So
that's smart.
Yeah, so we started doing that, and kind of they've been phasing out the branch book sales, although our branch still has a book sale, because it's kind of nice to have, especially families that can come in and like,
I
look
love
at all
the book
these
sales.
pictures.
Yeah, I love the
like,
I love the library sales. So
yeah, look at all these picture books we got for like $10, whereas if you bought them brand new at Barnes and Noble, that'd be like 50, 100,
or even
bucks,
at some place like half price books,
or half price books.
because a lot, like again, it's going to vary across the board, but like my branches around here, if it's like a multi-day sale, sometimes they'll do, or even if it's a one day, like if you come in later in the day when they're getting close to being done and they just really want to get rid of the stuff, they're like, anything you can fit in a plastic shopping bag, $5. So
if we librarians have been going on a weeding tear, and weeding is what we call it, we're like getting rid of books because we just don't have the room. Our book sale, our circulation staff is in charge of the book sale. They'll be like, and they have to ask the manager, but she usually says yes. It's like, can we just do a 25-cent? And because me and the other children's librarian, and we've been going through a lot of the kids' books, and they're like, kids' books, 25 cents each. Doesn't matter if it's a little tiny paperback or a big chapter book. Doesn't matter. And we will get people who ask, like, are there any kids' books out there on the book sales? Like, you should go look, because it just kind of depends. But yeah, so we'll like be, I was going somewhere with this. Oh, right. So Jared, and I'll talk about a lot of what Jared does too, because he does the teen books a lot. And what happens sometimes, and Jared will do this every couple of years or so. So he will set the report to say, okay, give me books that have not checked out in 2 years, and they also obviously they have to be more, they have been in the collection for more than 2 years. So he just went through and did this, and he is pulling books, and he's like texting me as he's doing this, because we're geeks that way, and he's like, I remember putting this book on the new arrivals display. It never checked out. I took it off the new arrivals, and it just sat there, 0 circs, 0 checkouts, and he had to get rid of it, because it's like, it's not checking out. It's got to go. And it's like, that money could have gone to something like somebody is really going to read and enjoy. And obviously not everything is going to be a hit. Not everything's going to be a win. A lot of this selection is a guessing game a lot of the time. Although you can look at, I mean, our acquisition staff, they look at like reviews, they look at, what's popular now. So if there's like a movie coming out or a popular TV show or something in the news, it's kind of a big deal. They'll look at that. to determine what they should buy. But sometimes you know you can't. Not everything's a winner, so it just happens. But it kind of sucks when it does. So coming back around to what patrons can do, and what if there is something that you want to see in the library, and even if it is, and I will say this, even if it is like an Amazon only published, like an indie published book, because we have bought those, but that has come about because people requested them through the website, and that is one of the things that our acquisitions librarians tell us all the time, that if there's something that patrons are asking for that we don't have, patrons can fill out we call it suggest a purchase, and whatever your library system calls it might be something similar. Check the website because it should be there. And it's not just like, oh, we're sending you to a form so you'll go away and not bug us. No, our acquisitions librarians, they have told us time and time again, tell your patrons to request things through that suggest a purchase form, because they look at that and they're like, oh, someone is requesting this. Somebody wants to read this. We should buy it, because that feels like it's more money well spent rather than just, oh, this book, it got a good review in library journal. Sure, we'll buy it. And maybe that one will go out. I don't know. But it feels a little more personal when it's somebody in your community that's saying, hey, I want to read this book. We don't own a copy. And sometimes they won't buy it. Maybe they won't for whatever reason, but they'll try to get it through interlibrary loan, which is amazing. Because there's a service that we do. It's called Library at Your Door, which is for homebound patrons. And so, like, if you can't get out of your house, and it's usually a lot of elderly people, but there are some younger people who maybe have like health issues, and it's hard for them to get out of the house. Well, we'll mail books to them. And I actually work with a couple who they'll call me every month or so and say, oh, here's our next few books that we want to get. Most of what they want, I have to get through interlibrary loan because it's some stuff that's kind of obscure, but we'll do it. And it's all at no cost to them. We have a budget for it, and
we have a van. The Bible library's got a van. They'll hand deliver.
That's
if you
cool.
Because my particular library, if you look at a map of Indiana, we have the Indiana like state library system, and there's usually one for each county, and then depending on the size of the county, and there may be a couple different branches if they're a big enough city within that county. The county I live in, just south of Indianapolis, does have a branch for that county. But the way that the districting has been drawn out, because I think my library was here first before the state system put in their branch. So the area that they service is small-ish circle in the county, and that's based on where you live. I live in that circle, and therefore I have to be a patron of this library. I can't go to the larger state system, but they can do transfers from that system. So that's the nice thing about it. But it's just like, we have like the county library and all of those branches, but that's not my library because I happen to live in this neighborhood on this particular street.
No, that it's funny. It's funny that you brought that up, because and with Indiana, I could see that because you guys, it's a distance thing. It's like you guys are a little bit smaller, more and there's more population, so it makes more sense to have that. With Utah, it's like we have the Salt Lake metro area, big blank space of nothing, or mostly nothing. So they have their little sort of bookmobile libraries, and then down south they have like their little systems. So so we have the Salt Lake County system, and my branch is like it's the furthest southeast you can get without going out of the county. So we get a lot of people from the county just south of us, Utah County, who come up, but they have to pay a fee because they don't live in the county. But they're all like, well, we like yours better because what happens is, and it's the way that Utah County is because it's bigger. They don't have a county system. Each town has their own library because they're more spread out, and they've got a lot more rural area there. Like the further south you go, that's when it all starts to get more spread out, and so they can't really do a or they don't want to. I don't know. So like my brother-in-law and his family, they live in one town, but they're actually but the library in the next town over is actually closer to them than their town's library, but they can't use it without paying for the
which I think I
out of
could, if I
boundary.
wanted to, I could go to
Yeah.
the state branch and
Uh-huh.
apply for a card, but I would have to pay.
Yeah.
It's like $20 or something like that because I don't technically live in their service area. But that's even that is
bucks,
like compared to what you
isn't-
get, that's a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah, it is. I know we had to increase our fee, and it just like people were like, "What the crap?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh," but it kind of had to be done.
In general, though, your
Yeah.
local branch is free. So,
Yeah.
but again, it can
so
vary. But a lot of places it is free to get.
Yeah.
You just have to prove you live in their area.
Yeah. And that usually means your address is on your ID or a bill or something. So it's not hard to do. And so what getting your library card, and there are places like I said. I mean, I work for the biggest. I think we're the biggest system in the state. But like I grew up in Podunk. It's just, and so growing up, my thing was we had the bookmobile, which was awesome. And my library growing up was the bookmobile library, which was just sort of where they stored the books when they weren't on the bookmobile, but they did have a library in there. And it was like in the basement of the fire station or something. And she didn't like do story time or anything. She was just sort of a caretaker, but they did do summer reading, which was fine. I actually found a certificate that I got when I was 9 years old that when I did summer reading that year. It was kind of cool. So even if you're like out further away, the state library is supposed to like offer, they have stuff online, but also they have bookmobiles that will come out. I know like bookmobile was always a big thing because they drive out just for our little family. We'd come out and pick a few books, and they'd also go to the schools and stuff like that. So I had my bookmobile card. It was awesome. And now that town, they have their own full-fledged library, which I remember when. But yeah, so going back to like, you don't, it doesn't have to be just the building where you go, although the building is awesome. It can be online. Like we consider our databases or our ebooks or our all that other stuff. That's part of the collection. That is part of what you can do. And so don't feel bad if like, oh, all I'm doing is the digital library. That's fine. That's the same as if you came and checked out 10 DVDs or something, or whatever. Or yeah, so you're not using the library because the website is they call it in our statistic reports, they call it the some of them started calling it the digital branch, which I think is kind of cool. Other reports don't because they're not that hip, whatever. But they do that kind of stuff, so it's a lot of fun. So if you for whatever reason don't want to come in or can't, or you just want to do stuff online, like just download all that stuff, look at the databases. The other one, so like there's Creative Bug, done Hoopla, talked about Libby. I know of Canopy. I think the city has that one. I haven't really, but we don't have it. I haven't really gotten a chance to mess around with it. LinkedIn Learning is a big one. They're trying to push that one so if you're like, I'm making all these fun little kitschy geek things and selling them on Etsy, and business is going crazy and you want to kind of expand, but you don't know how. LinkedIn Learning, that one has courses about business stuff. There's also
I need to learn how to use Excel to manage, to manage my finances. I don't know how to use Excel.
There's also, if you need like legal forms, there's what is it called? We have a database that has all the YOLO or no NOLO. Oh my
NOLO.
gosh.
Yeah.
NOLO. I'm really saying YOLO.
Yeah.
I know what it looks like in my head because I've had to print off so many forms, and it's not, and it's just like people look at legal stuff, and not a lawyer, not going to give legal advice. I just say like, here's the form you can print out and fill out and send to where you need it, or they'll have contact information of, legal organizations, like especially people who maybe they can't afford it, they can get in touch with legal advice that's pro bono. So that's awesome.
And that's another thing you should think of too when you think about your local library. You should almost think of the library itself as a database, and the librarians kind of as your access to that database, because librarians are very knowledgeable. I mean, most professional librarians have, they went to school to learn how to be a librarian. There's such a thing as library science.
That's what my degree is, Master of Library Science.
There are some that if they don't have somebody there that is knowledgeable on something, then odds are they can get you in touch with somebody who does.
Yes.
But
that is our forte.
Yeah, well, it was a very extreme circumstance, but when what was I read about it? One of the hurricanes in like the last 5-10 years or something like that that hit, and they had, I think they had to bring people from other branches in to help, but there was one branch library in the area, and they had specifically had people there to help people fill out like their insurance, to get like help from like FEMA and stuff.
And there are some branches like this has kind of been my thing, like this, and I honestly think this is why I became a librarian, is because I have so many things I'm like, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that, and then I never really become an expert on it, but it's that jack of all trades, master of none, and that's just kind of what I do. So like, because people, I'll start talking about something, and they're like, I had no idea you knew about that. I'm like, oh yeah, I read it in a book. And that's kind of why I think librarianship kind of appealed to me, because I don't have to know everything, but I can know how to find help. And when we have manuals filled up with like community resources for people who like maybe they need food, or they need a place to stay, or they need legal help, or they need help with a variety of things. And one thing we do is we partner with the Utah Food Bank, and some branches, like kids that especially have a lot of kids who come in after school because their parents are working a gazillion jobs because they have to. They do, it's called Kids Cafe, and they get like a little bag lunch, and it's it's not anything fancy, but they get something to eat. And they have like a little activity in the afternoon, and it's nice because they have somewhere to go. They're not getting into trouble. And like I had one teen librarian that I work with say it like this. She's like, yeah, it's like they'll be in here and they can annoy us, but at least they're not out annoying the cops or something like that. And so it's like I'd rather be at the library and be somewhere that's like safe, and you're even if they're loud, even if they're playing video games, it's like
exactly. It's like, again, depending on the branch, what they have access to. It's not just like, little Susie or young Johnny. It's like, when you get out of school, you're gonna have to go to the library until mom and dad get home, and it's not like, I'm gonna have to sit there and read books. You don't have to be Matilda.
No, there's
a lot of them. yeah, our teen area, they've got like multiple like video game
Mm-hmm.
systems, and they've got VR headsets, and they've
Oh
got
yeah.
board games.
Oh yeah.
The area for the smaller kids, it's
Mm-hmm.
more like kind of more Montessori type, so it's got a lot of
Yeah.
hands-on stuff for
Oh
them
yeah.
to
We have
use. So
we have toys out the wazoo, and we just
mm-hmm,
started for especially for the little kids. We have a cabinet where they can ask us for a board game and they can play it, and it's like and it's stuff like there's a deck of cards, or there's Connect Four, or there's a game that like is good for your math skills or sorting or stuff like that. And I know the branch that's north of us, that's a lot bigger. So the I don't know if it was the city or if it was the Department of Transportation, but somebody built a pedestrian bridge over the road in front of that library, because okay, so it's set up on the library itself is set up on a hill. Then you go down, there's the road, and then you go down the hill a little further, there's a junior high.
mm-hmm,
Well, the kids would be walking across that street, and it's a really busy street. So instead of having them use like the crosswalk and hike up the hill, they built a pedestrian bridge that went straight to the library. So that branch started seeing an influx of middle school kids who are, I'm going to be charitable here and say they're kind of a tough crowd. And they would just have tons and tons of these kids come into the library, and where they hadn't had before. Well, the librarians there, especially the teen librarian, she started doing like gaming tournaments. They always have a craft going on. And then the manager and the assistant manager figured out a way. It's like, okay, parents are going to come pick up their kids. So we're going to make like a drop off lane,
mm-hmm.
set cones out. So here, parents, here's where you go to come pick up your kid after school, because they're at the library because you could get them right after school. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like they're working with the community, and they realize here's a need that we need to address. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we're making this a welcoming place. Like, oh crap, they could have been like, oh crap, all these kids are going to be here and causing trouble and making a mess, and everyone's going to be annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can say like, let's and they built up the teen section there, and there's always something going on after school. They always have an after school program every day, and it's
Mm-hmm.
for those kids to just have a place to be. And yes, there are some instances like the kids who are doing some inappropriate stuff on the front lawn where everybody could see them.
Kids are gonna be kids,
This is true,
especially
and
teenagers.
you kind of just deal with those situations as they come up, and that's why we have
Yeah.
a behavior policy. But yeah, so I mean, I know we're kind of getting more into or less about the geek stuff, but
Well,
it's just
no, but I mean, that's the thing is like, it's a your library can be a community hub, not
yeah.
just
Mm-hmm.
a place where you pop in, grab a few books, couple DVDs, bada bing,
Mm-hmm.
bada boom, you're out. It's like, your kids can stay after school, and that there's someplace safe, and there's adult supervision, and they're keeping
Mm-hmm.
out trouble. I mean, my city, in the area outside of the library, it was just like a grassy field that was like over. It used to be soccer fields, I think,
Mm-hmm.
belonged to a school that they tore down. um and they could have done a lot of things with that, but instead they put in walking paths and a really nice playground.
Mm-hmm.
So when the weather's nice,
Yeah.
some of those kids that come after school, they can go out and play on the playground, and then there's nice big grassy area where they can just kind of run around or do whatever. And of course, if you're a
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Go player, there's lots of Pokestops and gyms right
Oh,
there. So,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which,
and there's
so
Wi-Fi,
yeah,
so you can play Pokemon Go without worrying
uh,
about using up your data,
yep, that's true too. I mean,
because they make
I mean,
sure that the Wi-Fi at least extends out into the parking lot.
yes. In fact, that was one thing during the pandemic, and even after, like, because on Fridays and Saturdays we close a little early, but we'll tell people, hey, the Wi-Fi stays on at least an hour after we close, so you can sit in the
Mm-hmm.
parking lot with your laptop if you need to finish up. And we have a lot of people, because where my branch is, it's a little more, it's more in a more affluent part of the valley. So we have public computers available, but most people bring in their own laptops. So it's kind of cool. In fact, the parents, when they bring their kids in, that we used to have iPads that the kids could play with, but the parents got mad because they're like, we came here so we could get away from the screen, so we got rid of the iPads. But we have a lot of toys, and we have a lot of games and stuff, like I said before. And so I want to go over a couple of things. So one of my favorite things about what I do personally is I do story times, and actually do them every Monday morning. And and it's really cool because I do a baby story time and I do a preschool story time. But my favorite thing about doing baby story time is we do like 15 minutes of we do rhymes, we do songs, and then we read a story, and then I get toys out and let them play. And it's babies from newborn to like 18 months roughly. Well, it's like when you're a new parent, or you have little kids, and you're just so you want to get out of the house. You need adult conversation. You need someone who gets what's going on. And I have had so many adults, so many grown-ups, so many parents, grandparents, whoever come in, and they just talk to each other about what they're going through. Like, how do I figure out this new baby? Or, parents who've like, this is my third kid. Oh, you do this and this. Oh, let's set up a play date. Yeah. It's like, let's set up play dates. Our kids are being friends. This is so cool. And that kind of thing. And I just kind of sit back and watch that happen. I'm like, oh, my heart, I'm doing, this is what this is for. It's like, yes, you're learning about early literacy. Yes, you're learning about how to help your child succeed in life, but also you're getting to like, this is good for you too, because you're not just, because it's so easy to get lost in the drudgery of changing diapers, feeding time, nap time, all this stuff. And just to be able to get out and do something that isn't being stuck in your house is amazing. So as
watching
as,
Bluey
as
for the 500th time.
Yes, although Bluey has its charms, I will say that.
Bluey is now on Disney Plus for those in the United States who don't know.
Yes, and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So but kind of in that same vein. So when I started at my branch, and we were kind of starting from scratch because it was still the pandemic, and like so many things had gotten canceled, and we're out of the habit of doing things. And my manager said, like, look, you can do whatever program you want when we start back up doing programs again, because it's like a fresh slate. So take advantage of this. And I was like, I love playing Pokemon Go, but it's a lot more fun with a group, and I don't know how to find a group. I'm going to do a Pokemon Go club, because we are right next to a park, and it's a really big park with a lot of stops and gyms and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. I know a lot of people have quit playing the game, but I'm going to open this up and see what happens. And that's basically what I did. And 2 years later, I have the greatest group of probably about, I want to say like 10 to 12-year-olds. Some are a little older, some are a little younger. And it's so much fun because, and their parents come with them. And what we do is we meet and we kind of like get going, like, okay, we're going to go walk around the park. And I made them little lanyards with our Pokemon Go club thing. And then they get badges for every month they come. So, and it's all the Pokemon types. So, and what's fun is that because we are such a big branch, and because we get patrons from all over, even though my branch is kind of one of the ones that's the most out of the way, I will get people who are like searching on the website, like, I want to do a Pokemon thing. So they search Pokemon on our calendar and they see all the Pokemon programs. Well, then they see mine's the only Pokemon Go program, because there's like Pokemon Club and the trading cards and whatever. They're like, oh, they actually play Pokemon Go. And if you know about Pokemon Go, if you want to do like the big legendary raids, or trade with people or make friends, you got to have a big group. And it's so much, and for these kids, and I've had the parents come and say, I don't know a dang thing about this game, and I know my kid likes to play it. None of their friends at school do. But then we meet all these other kids who are roughly their same age. In fact, there's one girl who lives close to my library, comes with her grandma, I want to say. And then another one who was like out on the west side of the valley drove out to my library because we were doing this. And so it was like this mom and her daughter came out, and these two girls just hit it off, best friends. And they're
Nice.
from very, vastly different, like, different kind of background, different place where they live. They don't go to the same schools, but they were getting so, and like we walk, and we just walk this whole big loop. It takes us about a half hour to walk around the park, and I can just hear them just chattering, just gabbing to themselves about like, oh, did you catch this one? And then they'll talk about things like, favorite movies, favorite this, favorite that, and they're just like, you girls are adorable. It just kind of, it's like, that whole, my heart, it just is like bursting, and I didn't know
Yeah.
what was going to happen with this program. But it's just so exciting, and like every month I do my monthly report, because that's like how they know what we're doing, what's going on. And I'm just like, this month the Pokemon Go Club, these two girls became best friends, and it made me so happy. So it was so cool. So all of that, I just love to gush about it. um but it's just fun. And
Mhm.
I will say, for people out there who are like, well, that's great, but my library doesn't have anything that cool, or my library, I wish they could do this, or I want to start this kind of a club or have a class or something.
Real
I'm gonna
easy.
tell you,
Go tell
I'm gonna
them.
go tell them, go tell librarians, because like I said
Even
about the
better,
book.
if you could volunteer, do so.
Yes, yes, we need
Mm-hmm.
volunteers. And some libraries, they will have what's called an advisory board. We have a teen advisory board, or we try to, because sometimes the teens age out and we got to get new ones. But I know that some libraries, they'll have ones for adults,
Gotta keep up
and
with
they'll
what's hip.
try, yeah, and they'll try to do one for kids, but that one's a little trickier to do. But this is a group of people, and in the case of the teens, they're like, okay, what do you guys want to do? What kind of programs do you want to have? And they'll like come up with ideas, and they'll
Kids
work with
into these days.
yeah, it's like, what do you guys want to do? Oh, we'll do, or you'll get to maybe help out, because we just had our big Halloween spooktacular, which is basically a carnival.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get the teen advisory board, or tab is what we call it, to come, and they're like, you guys can do a booth or something, or do a game, and they'll come up with the most insane stuff, and it's really cool. But they'll like, but it's like, here, you guys take ownership of it, you plan it, the library will sponsor it, because again, we want to do things that people are going to enjoy. And just like with the books, and like I'm buying these books, and maybe people will check them out, maybe they won't, but if I know that there's an interest in something here, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be more motivated. Like, I want this to be awesome. I want this to work out. Because I have planned programs that like one or two people showed up to, and you're like, well, I'll do it for you because you actually came. I do wish we could have gotten more people, but libraries, like, we have a budget, we have, we have spaces that we can book, we can reserve, we have these things, and our system actually has a programming department that has like supplies that maybe we can't keep at the branches. Like, they have like a rocket launcher, and they have a giant life-size chess set.
Mm-hmm.
They have, I mean, there's just so many things. They have yoga mats. They have Legos. They have 3D doodlers, which are like, they're kind of like 3D print pens. They have robot kits, like you can
Mm-hmm.
build your own robots. Um, so it's like, just ask, because you don't know what the library has available, or some, again, like, we're at the end of the budget year, and we're like, what do we want to buy? What are people going to use? But if we have an idea of like, oh, so and so asked about this, maybe we can try to see if we can get something to do that, or things like that. Like, librarians, we have our own ideas, and we can come up with some pretty cool stuff. But I'm just one person. And there's
Right.
some things I just can't think of on my own. And it would never occur to me to think,
And
oh, maybe
You're not John Q. Public either. So it's like you don't
that's
know what
true.
the person who
Yeah,
lives 6 blocks away might want.
that's true. And this is the funny thing, I will tell you, because where our library is, like, we're near the park. We're also near the senior center. In fact, we share a parking lot with the senior center. So we do a lot of, we do our public services librarian. She does a book club at the senior center, which is great. But the library system did is like a population demographic study about each of the service areas, And it turned out that our branches, where my branch is, the demographic is like it, because we get a lot of little kids and a lot of senior citizens at the library just because of where we are. But our city that we're in, the demographic is mid 30s. Average is like mid 30s. Not married, working in tech because we're really close to where all the tech companies are. Very affluent, which I knew that was a given. And it's like, so it's basically, don't get mad at me, but this is the term, the tech bros. Those are who live in our town. And I'm like, well, how do we cater to them? How do we get them to come? And it's kind of like, I don't know, because I'm not in that social circle. I don't know a lot of them, and honestly, a lot of them kind of just, I don't know. But at the same time, I'm like, I also don't want to go chasing this demographic if I've got this demographic that is coming, and I don't want to just be like, oh, I'm going to ignore you because I got to go chase these guys who may or may not have any interest in what we're doing. But if I can, but and we're not like completely ditching what's working in favor of, oh, they said we got to go get this other demographic to come in, but we are working with some outreach that we can do outreach. We're doing a lot of stuff like with our local, the city council, so they've been spreading some things with us, and like we're getting feedback from them, and they're like, well, could the library do X, Y, and Z with us? I'm like, oh, that might be fun. Or like every year they do, it's the town's called Draper, I should just say so. And every day in the park, which is right next to us, they do it's Draper Days, which is basically like big 4th of July, although it's not during the 4th of July, but it's like they have car shows, they have the Miss Draper contest, they have a parade, they have a 5K, they have all this stuff. It's like, well, why doesn't the library do something? And we'll probably end up doing something like that. I know we've been in the parade before, but like doing like getting people to know that we're there, and maybe that'll work. But at the same time, I'm like, all my little regular people who come, it's so fun to see them. And then, but then on the same in that same vein, today, like I said, I do story time. Today was Monday. I did Baby and Me, which like I said, was my baby story time. I had, and this includes adults and children, 71 people in there.
Wow.
Which is a lot.
Wow.
A lot.
That is a lot.
I was not expecting that many. And a handful were some of my regulars, but most of them were new people. I don't know what made them come today. I have no idea. Maybe it's just because it was a little colder. Maybe people just were, maybe it was like a mom group that figured out that we were here or something. They came and they had fun. And it was a little overwhelming for me, but I was okay with that because I don't know. I just had to adjust, and I did fine. And it was great. And everybody said they loved it. And I'm just like, I don't know where they all came from, but I'm really glad that they did. Because
you should find out.
I was gonna ask, but it was like, because I was like doing playtime and I'm running this way and running that way, and kind of, yeah, it was chaos. It was,
if you see it, if they come again, like if you see some of the same faces, you can be like, how'd you find out? It's like, we're glad you're here.
It's like,
but
yeah, I'm so glad you're here. I'm curious how
did you end up here?
How did you end up here? I gotta know. So anyway, I know I'm just kind of blathering on about this, but this is what I do. This is my thing.
No, I mean, I totally get it. Like my one of the, like I said, for the longest time I didn't go to my local library, but one of the times that I did before I became such a fanatic was 10 years ago. They had a Doctor Who day, and I just happened to see it posted or something somewhere. So I made sure to go that day, and they were showing episodes of Doctor, because this is right leading into the 50th. So I went, and they were showing episodes of Doctor Who, and they were doing Doctor Who crafts, and you know, at the time I wore like the one Doctor Who shirt I owned because I was still fairly newish to the fandom. And But since then I've seen them do like they've done like the library after dark, where they've had like music and like finger foods, and they've had adult beverages, and it's just for the adults, and they get to they have the run of the library and can kind of play with whatever. And they also brought in some like games and like I think like a mobile laser tag.
Yep, I think we've got one of those.
Yeah, so like
yep.
I've seen them do that. There was one time where I went into the library because I needed to go to the library, but it also just so happened that they were doing a community where they were like, because some libraries they will sell stuff that they're not going to keep anymore, but sometimes there's stuff that can't be sold, so they'll just give it away.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing, is they had piles of stuff that they knew they couldn't sell, but they still wanted to get rid of and not have it go to a dumpster or anything. So they had piles of those books, and people could just grab, whatever they wanted. But at the same time, they were also doing, they had cakes and cupcakes from various local bakeries for people to eat. Just cause. So it's like, come pick up a free book and have a cupcake while you're at it.
Do it.
So it's like, or was it earlier this year, or maybe it's next year? It was definitely during the summer. I remember it being hot. Again, I came to the library because I needed to, and outside it looked like Shakespearean era, like had just taken over the parking lot. There was a person with this giant like spit where they were roasting meats, and they had the little oven, and there was a chicken on a leash tied to a tree, and there were people like grinding like corn, and then there were over in the grass there were people sword fighting, and some of the guys were wearing like actual like armor and chainmail, and it's the Society of Creative Acronyms, which is a national like group of people who are fans of like the 16, I think it has to be like 1600s and back, I think.
Wow.
But they'll do like jousting and show you how they prepared food at the time period, and that they make their own time period accurate clothing. And they were doing this out in the parking lot. They were also doing stuff inside, but I completely missed it. But they're not connected to the library, but it's a local like club that was all like, hey, we want to show off some of the stuff we do and maybe get new members. Can we utilize your space? And the library is like, sure, you can use this one room inside and take over the parking lot, tie a chicken to a tree. And it was the most wild thing, because it's like, I just went to the library to pick up something I had on hold, and the next thing you know, I'm talking to a guy about like plate armor. So it's just you just never know.
So I kind of have similar stories to that, but so one of our branches, it's actually kind of our main admin branch, I guess. Is it's also attached to our big event center, and this was built like a little more than 10 years ago, but they built it so that they could have big, huge events, and so we do a lot of big things. And one of them that and Jared and I have both been on the committee for this, is ToshoCon, which I've mentioned before when I've been on the podcast, and it's the anime convention for teens. And it was so funny because we took up, so we have vendors, and it's mostly teens who are like selling stuff. So it's like the first opportunity they get to make things and sell them, make a little bit of money. And because it's the event center, because our system, they've got some, because we're under the county umbrella, there's some real strict policies about buying and selling. But if it's at the Viridian Event Center, it's okay, because it's an event center. They have different rules.
It's an event.
So it's an event. So it's like a convention, you know? So we take up the whole lobby with all of the vendors, and then we have the rooms like kind of down the rest of the center where there's like panels and gaming and crafts and a couple other things, and then we do a cosplay contest. And it was so funny because the lobby is like, so you have the lobby in the middle, and on one side is the library, and then upstairs is the administration with their offices, and the other side is the Viridian Center. So people who are walking into the library, just they're walking, so they go to the library side and they're looking, and they're like all these kids in cosplay, and with the wigs and the makeup and the fake weapons and all this stuff, and they're looking at like, what in the world is going on? and and we also had a few things going on in the library side, because that particular branch, bless them, sometimes they end up just kind of being overflow for our big events, especially ToshoCon, because we had the scavenger hunt going on in there. And there's just kids running around in their cosplay and just doing all that stuff, all that fun stuff. And it was so cool because like people will ask like, well, what is this? And we had to like be really strict, like this is just for teens. And it was funny because we give them all wristbands to make sure they've checked in and everything. Well, the parents, because it goes all the way down to age 12. So we consider the 12-year-olds to be part of the teen group. So, and there's some parents, which I get, they don't want to just let their 12-year-old run around by themselves. So, but we're like, okay, now your parent has to, your parent has to stay with you. We can't have any unsupervised adults in this teen convention. And the parents all get a kick out of that. So they get their own wristband to make sure, like, okay, yeah, we know that this parent is here, this adult. And so that was always fun. So yeah, that reminded me of that. And then the other one that I wasn't on the committee, but I helped on a day was Owl Camp, which Rachel actually has a picture of in the PowerPoint. So in the lobby, it's Harry Potter themed, although we kind of fudge it a little bit to get away
copyright
without copyright infringement. But it's Harry Potter, like, come on. Yeah. So, and it's
not fooling anybody.
No, we're not fooling anybody, and it's fine. So we're all dressed up, and what it is, it's for like kind of that. It's like 12 and older, so it is sort. But we're
Hogwarts age,
11, yeah, Hogwarts age. So I guess actually 11 and up. But I think there's some slightly younger kids, but because it's so popular, they have to split it up by age group, and then they do. So we invite the local aviary and the botanical gardens, at the University of Utah. They come down. Who else was there? Oh, Clark Planetarium. So the planetarium became.
So you have like literal subject matter experts.
Yes. So we have subject matter experts. So there's the Tracy Aviary, which like birds and stuff like that. So they like. So that one was, so they do classes throughout the day, and they get sorted into their houses, and the house that they get into shows what the classes are. And the day that I went, and I was just supposed to like herd my little second years around. So I was the house mom for the Griffin house, not Gryffindor, Griffin house. And I just had to make sure that everybody is, playing nice. I could give out house points. I could take away house points. So we had the whole house point thing going on. And then they have a common room, which they can do. We actually had a guy, and I know him because he works for the system, and he's pretty awesome. He does a mean Gilderoy Lockhart, and by mean I mean like he looks just like it. It's awesome. So he was there signing autographs in the common room. And they did like a gnome toss, so they like had to swing the gnomes over their heads and chuck them, and they got prizes for that. Like a scavenger hunt. But yeah, so it was like, so they did herbology, which was the Red Butte Gardens, which are up at the University of Utah. So they like do, they talk about different plants and they made a little, oh crap, what is it called? It's like a little thing for like a crawling plant to grow and crawl up around. So they do that like in a herbology sort of a class. And they did divination with eggs, and so the aviary, the people from there taught them like the parts of the egg, and this is what this is, and and things like that. So like, and then they had bird skeletons and feathers, like how to identify birds. And then I'm trying. Oh, and then the Museum of Natural History came out, and they've had the planetarium in years past. I don't think they had them this year, but it's like it's a way for we're doing a Harry Potter themed activity, a program, but they're also learning science and biology and all these different things. So it's fun, and we make it entertaining for them, but they're also learning. Oh, that's okay. That's what it was. That's what the museum did. They did building prosthetics for birds. So they talked about how like they've 3D printed beaks and talons and things for birds who've like lost them for whatever reason. And they're like, okay, here's how you're going to try to engineer something. And they give them like straws and pipe cleaners and I mean just stuff. So they're learning how to build. So it's like structural engineering for how, okay, now this bird has to survive, so how is this bird going to use this beak prosthetic to pick up its food or defend itself or things like that. um this was clear back in June, so I'm like trying to remember all the stuff we did. But yeah, the lobby was decorated to be like the Great Hall, and oh my gosh, they just went all out, and everybody who came to work that day or came to work at the event had to be dressed up in some way. I had my Hogwarts robe, and it was fun. It was just so much fun, and the kids were learning stuff, and again, all free. This was free for our patrons now because Owl Camp is so popular, and it would be a nightmare if it was just come just come on that day. They have to
Free for all.
register. Yeah, they can't do a free for all. There's just no way. But they have to register, because and then they have to be told what day they're coming, because it's all age based, based on your age, because the STEM subject matter is geared toward the state curriculum in schools and stuff like that. So it's like supporting what the schools are doing, and it's during the summer. So I mean, there's like 1,000,001 camps that you can send your kids to. But this one, free, FREE, free. I cannot stress that enough because it floors me how many times people come into the library and ask about a program, and they're like, well, does it cost? And it's like, no. Even if you don't live in our service area, and like in it, like you can come to a program, you can come to an activity. You don't have to have a library card to come to like a anything, any of the things we do. Now if you want to check out something or rent the room or whatever, though, that you do have to have a card for. But even if you like know somebody who has a card and they can book the room and you guys can go do whatever you want to do, that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to stand there. The group just comes in and says, hey, we have the room booked. I'm like, okay. As long as the person who reserved it is there, I let them in and people come. And I don't stand there like, do you have a library card? Do you have a library card? Do you have a library card? I don't, because there's no point. But we'll have like author visits and things like that. And we get, so when we did ToshoCon, even we had kids come from other counties in the state, or they came up from all over the place because they knew that this was happening, and it's just for them. It's just for the teens. It's not adults. And because sometimes Comic-Con Fan X can be intimidating, but if this is just for the teens, it's smaller, but it works and it's fun. So, but yeah, and I know I've kind of talked about my system because obviously that's the one I know best. But for anybody wherever you are, your library is free. And if there ever is a charge, like with the 3D printing and stuff like that, it's probably just to cover the cost of materials. And even then, it doesn't. Your whatever you're paying is not the whole cost of materials, because we have money budgeted for that, and it's just there's a little bit to offset it and that kind of thing. And I know, fines or, lost items and stuff like that. And that stuff happens. And even when you have a fine, I know our circulation staff, like they are really good about working with people. They are authorized to waive fines using their best judgment in the situation. And sometimes life happens. It
Mm-hmm.
does. And if you can, if but the fees, I feel like, are just kind of a, hey, we've got to share all this, all these things, and it wouldn't be fair if you just kept that book forever and
Mm-hmm.
ever and ever. So to me, it's like, it's just is kind of a way to encourage, bring it back when you're done, or even if you're not done, please bring it back still, because especially
Somebody else
when
might want
there's,
it.
yeah, well, one thing I know, that
It's a
we get,
finite
especially with,
number of books to go around.
that is true, and we can only get so many. But one
Yeah.
thing I that we have is the schools around where where my branch is. Well, even other places in the valley, they will say, okay, everybody's going to read this one book over the summer because you're going to be quizzed on it when you come back to school. And it's like, okay, we have like 5 copies in the whole system. Could you have told us if we were doing this? So yeah, so that one, sometimes the schools kind of don't think things through because they just think, oh, the library will have it. Yeah, you got like thousands of high school students who are all fighting over the same handful of copies of whatever the book is. So it's kind of like, um, tell us in advance because we can actually order those. So
Mm-hmm.
so here's another thing. If anybody is like on, working with schools or plans to have some kind of project where the kids all have to read the same book, let your local library know, like in the spring or even in January, because they can buy the book. They just need enough notice. So, because again, that goes back to, we want to spend money on things that are actually going to get used, or that are, that are needed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I told, we had a meeting with the school librarians in our service area, and I just told them, I'm like, look, if any of the teachers or one of your grades wants them to all read the same book, please let us know because we can get those. We just need to know about it in advance. And I'm like, I am this close. Like, I got to track down the PTA president because y'all are doing your own battle of the books and you didn't tell us, and now we've got everybody coming for the same list of books. And I'm like, oh, we could have done this better.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's just one of my gripes. Like I said, this was about me sharing some of the behind the scenes shenanigans of libraries. And but
Library
really,
life.
library life. But yeah, I mean, communicate, talk to your librarians. Maybe there's one or two who seem a little gruff and you get a little intimidated by it. Go talk to the children's librarians because we're nuts and we're a lot of. It's like, I haven't seen the Barbie movie,
Unless
but
they just
somebody.
had 70 people at baby story time.
Yes, 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 I did. It was fun, but oh boy. But I haven't seen the Barbie movie, but I do know about Weird Barbie. And somebody put out a meme that was like, here's the veteran children's librarian, and it's Weird Barbie with all the glitter and the stuff written
Yep.
on her face and everything. I'm like, yep, that's accurate.
Yep.
That is accurate.
Weird Barbie was probably a children's library in a past life.
Oh yes, oh yes. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like looking at all, like, we've got markers and stickers and glitter and all the fun stuff and puppets.
Mm-hmm.
Puppets are so fun. Great.
That's that, your
Anyway,
the library's just got all sorts of fun. I remember, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Brittany, I think it's when you were was it when you were working at the library, you just have to be living really close to your local bar. I remember you'd like go to your library and get like a whole bunch of books, and then you post a picture of you with your bag just stuffed full as you're walking home with your stash.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
She's like Matilda, except she didn't have the wagon. She's like, look, all the
yep.
stuff I just got from the library. I have
Also,
some weeks like that, depending on
uh-huh.
when my requests come in. Sometimes they come in all at once. And
Right.
I'm
Yep.
like, I've got
That
5 million movies to watch in the next week.
so I maintain another reason I became a librarian is because if I went to work at a bookstore, I would never bring home my paycheck. Because well,
Yeah.
I would, but it would all be books. So
Yep.
so what I found out, if you feel like retail therapy is like your therapy, you can trick yourself into thinking that you're going shopping for new books and new stuff. You go to the library and check out, like, just go look at the new arrivals display and like, oh, this, I like this cover, this one looks good, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
go browse back here and find, and then you leave with 50 books and you haven't spent a dime. Now, will you read all those books? I don't know. That's up to you. But yeah, there have been times when I'm just like, this one looks good. This one looks good. I have been known to kind of like, well, while I'm going through some of the new arrivals or some of the other stuff, or if I see it on a display and I'm like, ooh, this looks good, and I just kind of stick it on my cart. Oh, I'll check that out later. And then 10 books later, I'm like, I may have overestimated my my
Mm-hmm.
ability to get through all this stuff, but it's okay. It's totally okay because all it cost me, well, was
The
a
muscle
spot on
power
my
to
cart,
carry it,
pretty much.
carry it
It's like
home.
I bought a bigger like a bigger bag so I could carry all those books, and it still isn't big enough. I still am like trying to shove everything in there. So yes, librarians are not immune from over checking out. And no, I have not read all the books in the library. Would that I had that kind of time, but I don't. But that's what Novelist is for, which is yet another database that tells you all about all the different books that you have in your system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need to read alike, we have, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, we have Novelist. I'm sure there's other ones, but yeah, again, check your library's website, or go
Mm-hmm.
ask your librarian, because we know all about this stuff, but we don't get to talk about it quite as
Mm-hmm.
much as we probably should, which would be
Yeah.
nice. But yes,
If you're
go.
not like if there's something you're looking for, like a
Mm-hmm.
database or a resource or something, you can ask.
Yep.
Or if you just like you want to get the 411 with what's going on at your library, you could be like, hey, if I just come in, is there somebody I mean, when I originally got the idea for this presentation, that's what I did. Is I emailed my
Mm-hmm.
library and I was like, if I come in, is there somebody I can talk to? And that's exactly what happened. I scheduled a time. I came in, she gave me a
Mm-hmm.
full tour from bottom
Nice.
floor, top, bottom, inside out,
Yep.
and told me about like all the things that again, that I, even though I had been going to the library, I
You
did
had
not
no clue.
realize was there. Like we've got
Mm-hmm.
mine's got obviously books, DVDs, books on tape, although I'm sure most of those are probably on CD, but still
Mm-hmm.
Blu-rays. They've got comic books and mangas in
Yep.
the teen section. They've got uh board games and like bundles. They created like theme bundles that you could check out for like
Mm-hmm.
family game night, so it can be like a board game and like a movie that's kind of themed to go with it.
Yep.
They've got that. They've got tools, like stuff you can check out so that you're not having to buy it. So if you're like,
Uh-huh.
I need a soil meter to test my soil, but I don't want to buy one and I have no place to rent one, my library, you can check one out. Or a
We are,
telescope.
yeah. Oh yeah, we have telescopes. We call it the library of things.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like telescopes. We have Chromebooks. Oh, this is the coolest one. And I actually put it in my notes, but I need to mention it. So we have a collection, it's called Preserve the Memories. And it's stuff like, you have all those old home movies or film negatives or stuff like that. And it's like, this is like precious, irreplaceable stuff, but if it's just sitting in your attic and it's gonna wear out or
Deteriorate.
just deteriorate, you want it, this is graduations, weddings, birthdays, all that kind of stuff. And we have equipment that you can, depending on what you need, you can check out and you can digitize all that stuff. And one of the ones that we have is, in fact, if you have VHSs, we have a machine that will hook up to your computer and will digitize your VHS, which I am not going to confirm nor deny that would work on your videotape of the original theatrical release of Star Wars. I can neither confirm nor deny that, or any other VHS for that matter. So we have that, and it is marketed as digitizing your photos, home movies, and stuff like that. But it could have other uses as well. So we have that. We have Chromebooks. We have hotspots, which was really helpful when I was living with my in-laws and our internet went out one day. And my mother-in-law really needed it because what did she? Oh, she was having some meeting for work. I can't remember what it was now, but we were kind of desperate. So I ran down. It was on my day off, and I called down to my branch and I said, "Hey, do we have a hotspot available?" "Yes, I'm coming down to get it." So we had, and it gives you internet connection as long as you have a cell signal. And again, so you don't have to use your phone hotspot, which is going to drain your data. But this one, the library has a budget for it. They're paying for it. So, and it's for you to check out. We have story time to go. So there's these little backpacks that have like themed story times for kids, and they love them because it's like, I got my own backpack. And there's like some toys, some books, like a little, noisemaker, and they all have themes. There's nature kits that, and they change with the seasons. And those, again, going back to Tracy Aviary, which is our local aviary, and our zoo, I think does a few of them. So they'll change it out, like you can go chase butterflies, and this shows you how to catalog them, or tells you what kind of, or bird watching depending on the season. Or the next one coming up is the winter time, so it's like, here we're gonna examine snowflakes and how do snowflakes form, and here's all these tools that you can use to do all these like kind of science experiments, which is really popular, especially with homeschool groups, because we have a fair amount of those. And it's like, we're trying to kind of reach out to all these different people, and they're always, and we just added GoPros to the library of things, so we've got those. One of the branches has therapy lamps because it's getting to be winter time, and sun is not as plentiful as it was back in July. So that one's brand new. And I mean, they're just the acquisition librarian. It feels like every couple of months she's just adding something new. She sends out an email saying, "Hey, we have this new item in the library of things," and it's just like, holy crap! Because I don't think we've gotten to tools yet, but that one is just a matter of time. I swear. Like there's gonna be a band. There's gonna be a hacksaw in there somewhere or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's like, if it's something you need for like one-time use, you're not going to go to the hardware store and drop down a bunch of money for something you're literally only going to use once. And there are some places you can rent some of that stuff, but again, it's very not necessarily inexpensive, and it may not be convenient.
Yeah.
But if you could just pop into your library and be like, hey, maybe it's like, I don't know, you got a check engine light that came on your car, and you can't, places like AutoZone, they'll check it for you, but maybe you're not near one, or you can't get to one, for whatever reason. My library's got like that thing that you hook up to your car, and it reads the code and tells you what the code is.
Oh, nice.
So it's like,
yeah. Oh, well, speaking of car maintenance, we also have the Chilton's database, or it's like a database that has all the Chilton's maintenance manuals. And you can, so instead of checking out that great big huge car repair manual, you can just print off the one page you need about checking the battery, or replacing the battery, or doing an oil change or whatever. So that's nice. So there's just This is my other big
it's
thing.
yeah, it's like it seems so random that you're like at the library, really? But it's like, yeah,
Oh
no,
yeah,
that's I mean, that's the thing is like people, like I say, the people in like the Reddit are like, is it okay if I do this? And the librarians are like, yes, that's why it's
please
what we
do.
budget for. And the thing
Uh-huh.
is like, if it's your local library, you're living in their service area, you're helping pay for it anyway in some
You
form of
are.
local
You absolutely.
taxes.
Yes.
So it's like
And I
paying
will
for it,
say this.
use it.
Yes. This is the one thing I will say, because we all hear about, government overspending and what are our tax dollars doing, and they're spending on stupid crap and this and that. The library is the one thing that you are guaranteed that your tax money, and I'm speaking as both a librarian and a taxpayer and all these things. I take that seriously. I take that as someone has paid this money. Yes, they had to. Yes, it stinks because I hate tax day just as much as the next person. But I take that seriously as I don't want to just waste this on something dumb that isn't going to get used. I want to, be a good steward of that money. And every other librarian that I've worked with has expressed similar sentiments. It's like, this is money that has been entrusted to us to do something with that is going to benefit our community. And yes, we get people complaining about, oh, why is this book in here, or this thing or that thing, or and we can go and censorship has been like, it's the dead horse that won't stop getting beat.
People have been trying to censor stuff
Yeah,
since the day that
but
Gutenberg
yeah.
invented the printing press, if not
Although
before.
some of the way that the ALA, which is the American Library Association, that has promoted it, I have some beef with that, but that's a me thing. Just because they're not very even about how they handle that, depending on certain things. And I have talked
They
to
are
parents. I have.
the ALA though, the American Library Association. They are a very good resource though for a
They
lot of
are.
things.
They are. There are some things, and some of the way that they've talked about how parents, because there are concerns, especially in schools, but a school library and a public library are two very different things. And I actually do agree. It's like you need to have age appropriate things in your school library, but a public library, because this was always okay. Maybe I will get into this, because when I learned about Banned Books Week, and it was at my school, and they were like, "Oh, someone doesn't want you to read Harry Potter." Well, it wasn't Harry Potter back then because Harry Potter wasn't published yet. Because this was right before Harry Potter, I think. But I'll just use that as an example. But I'm like, but you could go to someone's house and read it, or you could, go to the bookstore and buy it, or like we had the book orders that we could order from, Scholastic Book Order, or the book fair and stuff like that. It's like, it's not a banned book because you can still get it. But then there were some books that, like, a few years ago, that, like, cancel culture were coming after, and they were actually pulled from publication, and ALA said nothing about any of that. So that part pissed me off. So I'm just kind of like, you better apply what you're saying to about these parents who are mad that there's, sexually explicit content in their elementary school or middle school libraries. You better apply that same passion for anti-censorship that you do with this other bullshit. So, with Twitter screeching about certain books that were they were pressuring the authors and the publishers to pull for publication, and they never did. So that part, that, just out, if you're gonna, censorship is censorship, and I don't care who it is or what you're coming from, or who, or what the concern is, because one of these is not like the other. But anyway, that's for a different thing. Where was I?
That makes sense,
Anyway,
though.
that
If you
being
do
said,
have concerns, you can
and
take
we
those to
yes,
the people at the library,
yes,
but
and
do it nicely.
do it nicely. And I will say, if any of my fellow librarians are listening, I would plead with you. I would love to do a presentation, but I don't think it'd be accepted. Is called "The Patron Is Not Your Enemy," because I have actually had parents who have, because there's been this whole big kerfuffle about stuff in schools. I had a parent come to me as a mom and her teenage kids, and they actually volunteered at the library. And once she said their names, like, oh, I know who your kids are. And she's like, I don't want them bringing books home from the library because, some of this is inappropriate. And I was like, look, but she also was like, I don't want to ban books. I don't want to, because the news had covered it as, oh, these ignorant parents who are trying to keep these books out of schools, and how dare they do that, putting them in this bad light, which I hate, because I'm like, you're making these parents look like the bad guys, and they're not. They are concerned about their kids, and there are a lot of reasons to be concerned about their children. I'm a parent, I'm a librarian, I see both sides, but I've also seen some discourse from librarians. And yes, it is frustrating, especially when a parent is hopping mad and they're ready to jump down your throat. And they're not mad at you personally, they're mad at this situation. And I can see why they're upset and why they're angry. But I can also see parents who are like scared to death to even just speak up, because this mother was like, I don't know who to talk to. Like, can I talk to you about this? And she was like, I could like tell, like her voice was shaking. She was ready to cry, but she didn't know what else to do. And I am just so grateful that I was the one who talked to her, not to toot my own horn and say, look at me, I'm so awesome. But I got it. And I was like, I get it. And yes, there are some books in here that might not be what your child wants. And every kid is different. Every kid, like, I mean, I'm every person is different. Like I've said before, I do not like gory horror movies. I don't like scary haunted houses. Jared wants to take me to a haunted house one of these years. I'm just like, ugh, I don't think I can do it. But I like the Haunted Mansion and I like Tower of Terror. So it just kind of depends. And kids are like that too. And I just finally told this mom, I was like, I gave her, so I had a business card, and I said, look, if you need help, if you and your kids need help to find books that you are interested in that are appropriate, that you're comfortable with them checking out, I will I will do reader's advisory for you. I will help you find things that are appropriate and that you're good with. And if that is acceptable to you, because she was just like, some of these books that are in the teen area probably ought to be adult. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that. And as a professional, I couldn't really say whether I agreed with her or not. Some of them I actually do on a personal level. Some of them, like, it's on the border, whatever. And
Depending on
categorizing
your
books,
kid,
yeah,
young,
but I was glad, yeah,
kids being killed for sport in the Hunger Games
that is true.
may not be appropriate for your child,
Yeah,
even though technically that's a young adult book. So
yeah. Or Five Nights at Freddy's, like, I mean, that's a big movie right now, and there are books there, and you think about it like, oh gosh, this is like child murder and these ghosts possessing these animatronics. Like, that is scary shit, man. But it appeals, but because the games and everything appeals to the kids. So again, know your child. And I'm just glad you give a damn enough to come down here and be like, look, I just want to know, I just want to know what my kid is reading. How can I help them? What resources are available to me? And I am like 100% happy to help a parent who is upset about perhaps something their child read, or maybe even the kids upset, because kids will read something and they're like, I didn't realize this is what that was. And I mean, when I was 8 years old, I went to a slumber party and somebody's older sister said, hey, let's watch Candyman. And I had no idea what that was. And we all watched it, and I was like scarred for life. That's probably where my hatred of horror movie comes from.
Yeah, I'm a 40-year-old woman, although I wasn't 40 at the time, but like when I went to Dallas several years ago, and I went to the George W. Bush Presidential Library, and one of the sections was about when she was First Lady, Barbara Bush. Her big thing was reading, was one of her big initiatives. So there was a section about her, what she did to help, encourage, young kids at a young age to hopefully develop a love of reading. And there was a bunch of books that, they had out so that, people could pick them up and look at them. And one of them was Where the Red Fern Grows. And I was flipping through it, and if you've ever read that book, it's not a happy ending.
No, it's not.
Several characters. I found myself in tears, standing in the George Bush Presidential Library, flipping through a copy of Where the Red Fern Grows at 30-something years old. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love Where the Red Fern Grows. I had a dog named Little Ann growing up. But yes, that book is sad.
Oh my God. It'll wreck you.
It will. But yeah, like, and I think a lot of parents are just like, I think that the debate is kind of getting framed a little dishonestly, because people want to have like a cause or a thing and a bad guy. And I really hate that. And my whole thing is like, and this year for Banned Books Week, our system actually reframed it because there has been such controversy, and they didn't do it like banned books, like, ooh, these books are forbidden. It's like, no, we're calling it Let Freedom Read. And it was just like, what are your favorite books? And like, I mean, earlier we had feedback from Aaron because we talked about Little Shop of Horrors, and he said he hated that movie and the play or the musical and all that. And I was like, okay, that's great. That's fine. You didn't like it. Like what you want. Don't like what you don't like. It's okay. And I
just because you doesn't like it doesn't mean that you have to keep anyone else from liking it.
Yeah, or because I like it means I have to force someone else to like it, and it's obviously not their thing. So it all goes both ways. So I think the whole censorship thing, because it gets so, because it is a hot button thing. And in the past, like book burnings and censoring of ideas and things like that has been historically a really touchy subject. And also because it gets clicks and ratings for the ghoulish news media. Because like, whoa, we're not letting kids read books. It's like, well, yeah, I don't want my child reading Madonna's sex. Like, come on, have some sense, you dumbass.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, and that's what the hopefully.
And librarians. I'm like, I will lead the charge on this. I am more than happy to help you find age appropriate, or maybe it's not for kids. Maybe it's for you. Maybe you want a mystery that isn't, or a thriller that isn't super gory. Because I've had people who are like, I want a mystery and I want a thriller sort of thing, but I don't want to read about a lot of sex and violence and language and stuff like that. There are clean reads for a reason, and lots of people love those, and that's great. I'm like, there's an audience and a book for everybody. So please talk to your librarians. If you've had a bad experience with one, go talk to another one, because that's the other thing is, yes, a librarian may be at the desk, may look like they're busy, and don't feel shy about coming up and like, hey, I have a question. Because there's a lot of stuff we have to do, and sometimes I take work out on the desk. There's always work that I'm like, okay, I can set this down and help the person in front of me. And I will say, and our public services librarian, when we like, she says this to me a lot when I like take over for her on the desk. We switch, and she goes, I actually had a good reader's advisory or a good reference question, because a lot of times she gets questions like, how does the printer work, and how do you log on to the computer, or where's the bathroom, stuff like that. But like when someone comes and says, hey, how do I do this, or how do I find this book, or do you have recommendations? Those are the fun questions, the real meaty ones that we're like, ooh, yes, I will help you find this. This is going to be so much fun. So we get a kick out of it, honestly. So never feel like you're you're interrupting a librarian. Never feel like you're taking them something away from something you might think is more important, because we're here to serve the patrons. We're here to serve the people who come up and ask us questions. That's our job. And where nothing is more important than the person in front of us and whatever their question, comment, concern is, and just come in and also behave yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that just means, you know, don't don't walk around with no pants on or something
Yeah.
ridiculous like that. It does happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just,
But
I don't know.
if you do want to make your librarian's life just a little easier, if you're looking for a book, try to remember more than just the color of the cover.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, no, and I have done that too, because I was looking for a book for a display I wanted to do, and I was like, oh, what was the name of that book? I know the cover was red, and then as I said it, I'm just like, I'm a dork. But yeah.
Like
Although sometimes
if you could remember like a character name.
yes, even if you don't know the title and you don't remember the author, but yeah, if you remember his
Is it
character name,
fiction, nonfiction?
yeah, is it is it set in a like a historical time period, or like what's any proper noun that you can think of, whether it's a person's
Something that could
name
go
or a
into a search
place.
engine.
Yes, because sometimes it's like that's all I've got.
Yeah.
Or a scenario that's going on in the book. Because there have been some where people come up, I read this book so many years ago, and I remember this happening and this happening, and I kind of plug that in, and they're like, and I find 4 or 5 possibilities, and they're like, oh, it's that one. Or
there's also a
sometimes,
Reddit for that.
Yes. Oh, I'm
Called
sure there
What's
is.
That Book? And you can tell them as
Mm-hmm.
much information as you can remember. And odds are the collective brain of Reddit will figure it out for you.
Yes, yes. The internet is a wonderful thing, but also can be a froth thing. That's why we have librarians.
Yeah. But hey, if you're thinking of that book and your library is not open, you can go to Reddit.
Reddit is an option. That is
They're
true.
almost like your library.
Just a little more prankstery.
Yeah, sometimes.
Oh man.
I've found that some of the like the libraries Reddit is pretty good. You can get a chuckle of the librarians that have their stories. But the patrons that have questions, they're usually very nice about answering people's questions and not making them feel stupid or anything. And the what's that book Reddit's not bad either, because I actually have used it where I could like remember a little bit of the plot, and within probably less than an hour of me posting, I had the title and the author. So
there you go. Yeah, librarians are really nice. I mean, as long as you're not making a mess or causing trouble, or yes, there's public. You're working with the public. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had to field some very interesting questions in my time, and sometimes I just kind of write them down. Like, this one's nuts. Like, there was one guy who wanted to bike from Salt Lake City to Cheyenne, Wyoming, without getting on the freeway or any highways. And I'm like, you're gonna go through the mountains? I don't know if your mountain bike can handle that. He's like, do you have a map to show that? I'm like,
even with I mean a bicycle probably doesn't belong on the highway, but
no, probably not.
I could kind of see where he was coming from, but at the same time, it's like,
I could.
Is that even a distance that somebody would actually want to bike? Unless you're like,
know.
Was he training for the Tour de France?
I don't know. Or there's like the Logan to Jackson,
or an Ironman competition.
Yeah, that's like
triathlon.
Because I will say, like, try like all the ways that I know of to get from Utah through Wyoming. I mean, and I can't remember if this was what time of year it was. I mean, if it was like fall or winter, you're better off just waiting for the spring thaw, my friend, because the Wyoming passes are nuts, even at the best of times. But yeah, I was just like, why are you biking to Cheyenne? I don't get it. But everybody's got their reasons. I'm not here to judge.
They're just here to help.
I am here to help
You're,
to the best of my knowledge, and
you're here to
sometimes,
reference.
sometimes the answer to the question just doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Sometimes it does. But I will do my best. So anyway, so did we hit all the highlights?
I mean, yeah, I mean, without getting into like a lot of like the technical
Oh yeah.
stuffs, then
Uh-huh.
you know, absolutely.
I mean, and
I
there's
think
lots
so.
of,
So
yeah. I mean, basically the best thing I can do is like familiarize yourself with your library. Go to your library, make friends with some of the librarians because they love
mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
just go, volunteer if you can, if you have the time. Our volunteers, we adore them because they help us out with so many things that we need to do, but we just don't have time, or it's nice to know that we have volunteers. Also, it looks great on a resume. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do that, um, but yeah, get on their website. I tell people you can't break anything, so just get in there and mess around and see what's over here. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these other things you've got on here. Yeah, on your library's website, look up their databases, their subscription services, see what they offer. There's, I mean, I feel like the digital services, we promote them as much as we can, but I don't think they're as well used as we might want them to be.
I
So
had to practically beg Chauncey to finally go get a library card just
Chauncey,
just for the digital stuff, because he's not a big book reader, but he
uh-huh.
loves to listen to stuff.
Oh, there's plenty of stuff to listen to.
And I was like, go get a library card, and you could, there's streaming movies, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them they've got like online comic books, so if you're a comic book
Oh yeah,
reader, and digital does count as reading,
yes it does.
no matter what
Audiobooks
format
count
it
as
Mhm.
is.
reading too.
Yes.
Audiobooks count as reading.
Yep.
I will
uh
die on that hill.
yes, but he was all like, he mentioned he wanted to read some book, and because he there was one book that like he had decided he wanted to read it, and he bought it, and then he was like, I'm also reading, he's like, I'm also listening to the audio version, and I was like,
Okay.
okay, but he paid for the audio version. I was like, download Libby.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Yes.
And I was like, here's how you find what you're looking for, here's how you check them out, this is how long you get them for, and you can listen to them there. And he's like, you just saved me like $20 from having to buy an audio. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
did. You're welcome. I mean, Libby can't get everything, like some
No.
of the Audible exclusive stuff you're never going to
Yeah,
get through Libby.
and
But
that is
like,
down
I've
to
been
the
able to get like
publishers.
brand new release. Like, I listened to Prince Harry's book like within a couple of weeks of it being released,
Yeah.
when it was
Yeah.
still the hot thing at the time. So, you
Yeah,
know.
the publishers are very funny about ebooks, especially if it's an Audible exclusive or an Amazon, or yeah, because there was this whole big thing about the publishers, like, well, you can't do an ebook until after it's 6 months been out, and we're just kind of like, because they're like, well, libraries are costing us so much money. I'm like, dude, libraries are keeping you guys afloat because we buy
Mm-hmm.
so much of your stuff that nobody else is
Mm-hmm.
buying. So yeah, I have a beef with publishers, but I won't get into that here because we're having too much fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, just Libby has got some great stuff. Hoopla's got great stuff. I really need to familiarize myself with Canopy. I think the city library has it. We don't, but I've heard tell that that it's one of those things. They're constantly looking at, oh, what are all these things? What should we try out?
Mm-hmm.
So watch the space. We'll yeah. Um, but yeah, I think that one's a movie streaming service, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But like I said, I gotta go familiarize myself with it because it's not one that it's a newer one, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Because Hoopla is audiobooks, ebooks, comics, movies, TVs,
mhm.
magazines, and music. So,
Yes.
and you could use it on your computer or your phone. your TV if it's one of those smart ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, Canopy is just movies. So
Yeah.
um,
And yeah, it might not be the latest and greatest, Hollywood blockbuster, but there are some
hey,
gems
when
in
you're
there.
doing a podcast like Gold Standard, you're not
Oh yeah,
necessarily doing the latest and greatest. So
that is true. And there's a lot of old stuff out there that is totally worth your time. So give it a shot. So yeah. I'm just trying to think. I mean that's everything I could think of, and I mean like I said, I could talk everybody's ear off
yeah, me
about,
too.
but I don't want to. I don't want to. We don't want this to turn into the 3 hour Once Upon a Time repeat. So maybe we'll do. We could try to do a part 2, but I feel like we hit the highlights either way. But yeah, just go to your library, look up stuff, look on the website, talk to your librarians. Just look around and see what they offer, and you're gonna save yourself a ton of money first off,
You're gonna
and
be
yeah,
I would almost, because again, it's going to vary across the board, and obviously libraries in larger cities with more people and therefore more taxes going into the system are going to be able to purchase subscriptions and stuff to more things.
that is
But
true.
I will say that odds are, if you are not a patron of your local library, if you go in and just ask them, what do I get if I have a library card with you guys, you will genuinely be surprised
Yes,
at
you will.
the answer you get.
And even if you are in a smaller town that doesn't have as much resources, your state library covers so much. Like our state library has a great digital website with resources, and I mean it's mostly like homework and database type stuff, but I think they also have access to some audiobooks and digital stuff too. So don't discount what your state library has to offer if you're in an area where there's bookmobile, that kind of thing. I love the bookmobile. I will always have a special place in my heart because that was what I had when I was growing up out in the sticks. And yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. And so we had a good time with it. So yeah, we love libraries. They're fun and go team. All right. So if are we good? Anybody else? Brittany, did you have anything you wanted to chime in with?
Not
It's
really.
been a hot minute
I know
since you.
everything.
Yeah, I know it's been a while since you were employed by a library. So
yeah. Well, just want to make sure. Well, speaking of, if any of our listeners want to chime in about their favorite feature of the library, or if they have any questions or stuff like that, you want to send in feedback, send us an email. Shoot us an email at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is the5ishfangirls.com, and that has links to all of our social media stuff that you can comment on. We have links on our for like our show notes and stuff that we've mentioned here, so you can check all that out. We also have a YouTube channel, which again, if you are wanting to see the PowerPoint, or Rachel said she'd send it to you if you feel so inclined, but this will be on a video on the YouTube channel as well. You can leave comments there, follow us, all that great stuff. And also support us if you can through our Patreon or our merch shop. Again, links to that are on our website. So check that out if you feel so inclined. There's some fun stuff on merch shop as well. And of course, thank you for listening. Thank you for being our audience, our supporters, our little community we have here. It's good. This is fun. This is awesome, and it's just good to know that there are people enjoying what we do. So thank you again, and
support your local library.
Support your local library. And,
tell them we sent you. They won't know who we are, but tell them anyway.
Yes, but yeah, and and even if all you do is just go in and find a quiet place to sit in the corner and read, that's what it's there for.
Heck, just go in to use the bathroom if you need to. I've done that.
That is true. Where we're next to a park, and our park has a lot of like bathrooms sprinkled throughout, but it's a park bathroom.
Yeah.
So totally okay.
I was out
All you
running
do
around
is-
and I needed to go to the bathroom and I knew that theirs was clean. So,
Yeah.
so, anyway.
Anyway.
All right. Oh, little bit of housekeeping. I will try to remember to post something on social media next week, unlike last time. But in this case, we know ahead of time there will not be a new show next week. So because I will be out of town. I am going to see Metallica this weekend.
Ooh.
And one of the it's 2 shows, Friday night and Sunday night, and we are not driving home after the Sunday night show because we are not crazy. So
Yeah, don't do that.
we are staying overnight Sunday night in Detroit. We will be in Detroit. So if anybody in Detroit, hit me up.
Detroit Rock City,
And
man.
yeah, so but we're not going to necessarily either rush home on Monday either, so because I'm sure Chauncey and I are both going to be meddled hungover.
Oh yeah.
So
Get home safely and in one
yes.
piece and more
We're
alert
going to take
than...
our sweet time coming home because it's been a while since either of us have had a long weekend. So that will be nice. But yeah, so once I get home and recovered from 2 nights of Metallica, we will go back to our usual schedule the Monday after. So, but no
right.
show next week, but that that gives you time to get caught up in all the other stuff. So
Alrighty. Well,
so,
have fun, Rachel.
out with that. Yes. So
give Detroit my regards.
Yeah. With that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany and Beldo saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. I will leave you with these words from Neil Gaiman with an interview he did with I Love Libraries. So, little story he told about his early love of libraries. So, when I was from, I think, the age of 7 onwards, my parents would drive me to the local library in the morning during the summer, which is where I wanted to be during my school hours. And I would just sit there going through the card file. It had an old-fashioned card file. And I would go through the card file looking for words like witches, robots, outer space, ghosts, monsters, giants, magic, anything like that. And I would read everything I could in those categories, and I'd read anything that looked interesting. But I remember the joy of being able to talk to the librarian about the things I wanted to read that they did not have. The library was a space where I could go as a 7-year-old, as an 8-year-old, and where I was treated with respect. I was treated as one of the people who was there. I could talk to the librarians, and I did. Most of the time, they'd just ignore me. I'd be sitting reading my book, and I was the happiest kid that could be in the corner reading. But when I did interact with them, they interacted with me as a customer, as a patron, as somebody who was entitled to be there, deserved to be there, had every right to be in that space.